Welcome, everybody, to Freelance Writing Direct. I'm your host, Estelle Erasmus, the author of Writing That Gets Noticed, Find Your Voice, Become a Better Storyteller, Get Published, and it is now a course at NYU and an elective towards the journalism certificate. Every week, I speak with novelists, with authors, with writers of every niche to talk about their tips, their tricks, their strategies, and how the sauce is made, including creative advice. I'll talk about essays and articles and share my own experience from 3 decades of publishing. So join me every week and grow your business and build your craft with Freelance Writing Direct. And don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review on iTunes. And follow along on Substack, where I share special clips for subscribers only at estelleserasmus.substack.com. Hi, it's Estelle Erasmus, the host of Freelance Writing Direct. And this is a bonus episode for the podcast on the U.S. Book Show, which took place on May 22nd. And it was presented by Publishers Weekly and the Association of American Literary Agents. And it took place at NYU, where I teach. And I want to give you the highlights and then also share my perspective on some of the items that were covered. So the first opening session was a roundtable, and the attendees included Jonathan Karp, who's the CEO of Simon & Schuster, Anand Kochar, who's the CEO of Baker and Taylor, Mary McAvenny, she's the CEO of Abrams, and Peter Warwick, who's the CEO of Scholastic. Certainly a very prominent group. And they talked about the changing industry, and that's really true. There's been such a sea change in the industry, not to mention some of the politicized situations like book banning, which obviously none of them are in favor of. And they also talked about how audiobooks are really doing well and are in fact one of the burgeoning areas of the industry. And my own personal story is nobody wanted the audio rights for my book at first, and then my publisher got interest. And so they had reverted the rights back to me, but I reverted them back. And now somebody is doing the audiobook, and I'll be doing the introduction. So this is an area that is going to be booming. So I think when you're doing a contract for your book, make sure that you are covered appropriately in there, and make sure that there's a way for, if necessary, the rights to revert back to you. Because with AI totally inundating the industry in ways that we don't even know at this moment, I think it will be important to have those rights, or to be assigning those rights and having them be ethically and carefully handled. And then Kochar said that we should protect librarians. I'm paraphrasing, but he said something really important, that libraries are a key to the industry. And in fact, if you get a Publishers Weekly review, which I did for Writing That Gets Noticed, it means that that goes to the libraries and to the people that are buying the books, who are not just the regular readers, but the booksellers. And that makes an impact. And libraries are key because anyone can borrow from a library. They can borrow over and over again. And if a book is successful, oftentimes a library will put them out on the wall, or even they'll put a wall out of local authors, and then they'll maybe get additional books. So, we really do need to support our librarians in our libraries. And I have this whole section in Writing That Gets Noticed talking about how librarians are, in fact, our heroes, that we can go to them to do research, that we can go to them to help support the work that we want to do. So they talked about how books are being discovered in an age where social media is so key, and where right now, at least, TikTok has brought a lot of books back from the backlist, where some books get relegated to after they're no longer current. So it really kind of changed the game as well, because books that could be 10, 20 years old are getting new life. And that is something that publishers need to pay attention to. In general, they were really optimistic about the industry and felt that there is a lot of growth potential. There is a lot of room for new voices, for new books, and for new information. And that obviously they're the heads of the companies. They want to be positive. But I do believe that right now, even though audiobooks are a booming area, that books, print books, and ebooks will continue to grow and flourish and get new readers. Another panel that was very anticipated was the Young Publishing Forum, and that included a senior editor at Simon & Schuster, Yaden Israel. That included Fernanda Martinez from Planeta US, Noah Perkins from the Young Publishers Association, Maya St. Clair, Young Publishers Association, Locus Magazine, and Monica Woods, who's the founder of Triangle House, which is a literary agency. And it was a very popular panel, but I think the focus of it was that there could be a lot of growth for new people in publishing, new members in the publishing world, and that mentorship is important, and it's important to forge those connections. And Mr. Israel gave the point that some of the older guard in publishing, they would go to share houses together and things like that. And if people don't have access to that, there are other ways to build in that mentorship and that feeling of community. And so this was for people who want to move up in the publishing world, not authors per se, although it could be some authors, but it's really people wanting to get into different levels of publishing and making those connections. And they talk about attending events and making sure that you're up to date on the latest information and the latest knowledge. I've always been very involved in mentoring younger writers and authors, and I think that through the American Society of Magazine Editors, they have that mentorship for editors, and publishing has it through the Young Publisher Association. And so anybody who's very interested in publishing in that world should get involved in that organization. And some of the people shared that they have newsletters, and it's really that kind of connection. So I've been in publishing for 3 decades on both sides of the publishing wall. And I found that it's really important to forge those connections, which is why I've been a member of the American Society of Journalists and Authors since 1997, and the American Society of Magazine Editors, and Authors Guild, and just anything that's going to get you connected to people in your field. And so that was really the premise of what that talk was about. And then finally, the last panel I went to was called The X Factor, and it was about people skills and navigating different professional relationships. And so panelists included Reagan Arthur, the publisher of Alfred A. Knopf, Dawn Davis, Senior VP and publisher of 37 Inc., and executive editor of the Simon & Schuster imprint, Sally Kim, president and publisher Little Brown, Dominique Rocca, CEO of Sourcebooks, and Todd Schuster, co-CEO of Avidus. And Macmillan Sonali Goel, senior director, talent and development, moderated. And so they really just talked about people skills and trying to put together a personal brand, which most of their publishing companies have. And I think they can also create their brands. Like somebody who's really excellent at creating her own brand, who wasn't at that panel, is Lisa Sharkey of HarperCollins, who just got her own imprint, Harper Influence. And so I think that the way that they do that is by sharing their thoughts and sharing information. And so all these people can be brands. They didn't quite think that they were brands, but they are probably people who are able to navigate the publishing landscape. And so I don't know that it's so worrisome at this point in their careers. Where you want to start your branding is earlier in your career. And you can do it from little bits as to maybe picking a color. Like I wear a lot of pink, and it's also included in the important lettering of my book at Noticed. And you can do branding in the way that you approach a subject. Maybe you're always funny in some way, like maybe you're doing something a little tongue-in-cheek, like the people who do the podcast Memoir. And so there's different ways to work on how your voice comes out in your branding. And I think I would have liked to have seen a little bit more of that kind of discussion, helping people at a little bit of a lower level. It was a great show. I miss the old book expo days when you could walk through and see all the books. And I didn't get an opportunity to have my book in a book expo because they didn't have it this year. But I do think that it would be also great to have a panel with debut authors talking about navigating the publishing landscape, because it's such a changing landscape. And it's really important. When I was at the Atlanta Writers Conference, I did a session on partnering with your publisher. And I think every writer or author could really benefit from something like that, especially from these great, brilliant minds in publishing. I also would like to see some aspect built into the US Book Show of mentoring. So not just talk about it, but maybe have some mentoring sessions, maybe offer that. I think there needs to be a little bit more of the translation of all these great minds and all this great wisdom to bring it to that level. There was also a session that I went to that I saw a little bit about, and it talked about AI. And it was Keith Riegert, publisher of Ulysses Press, and he's an NYU professor. And he talked about, AI, the juggernaut of AI is coming, and you really have to find a way to work with it. So here's my take on AI. Yes, I use ChatGPT and I use some other forms of AI, like I think there's Google AI Slides, because I'm not going to take my writing that is unpublished and put that in to get it changed or tweaked or whatever, because I am then feeding the machine. But what I will use it for, and what I advise my students at NYU and Writer's Digest to use it for, is to actually maybe organized material. So you say what maybe you're going to do a speech or slides. I've used it for slides. So I'd say the things that I want to cover in my slides, and I asked AI to break it down into 20 slides. And then each time they broke it down, I'd say, okay, and add more about this. And then it would add in. And of course, obviously, I have to go over and make sure that it's in my voice, that it's the information that I want there. I'm tweaking, I'm adding different information, but it does get it started a little easier. So I would recommend using AI for organization as well as idea generation. That could be very helpful too. If you're trying to think of different ideas put into AI, I'm looking to write a piece about psychology and happiness. Are there new ways to look at it, and see what AI says, and then maybe that will pique your ideas. And I also recommend, which I do in my book, setting up Google Alerts, because that every author who has been writing a book and doing research sets up Google Alerts for the subjects that they're interested in. And then they get the latest news and information. And I did that when I was writing my book. I set up a Google alert for any new creative research or any new statistics containing writing and journaling. And so I got a lot of information that way. And I think obviously you have to vet everything you have, but that could be really helpful too. So that was my take of the US Book Show, a conference for publishing professionals. And I hope you found it helpful. And I really did like being there, liked being in the midst of everybody's information and intellect. I got to see Kathleen Schmidt, who has a wonderful newsletter, Publishing Confidential, and she covered the book show as well. And I got to see Joelle Del Borgo, who's a wonderful literary agent, and we were able to get together and have lunch. And so it was really nice to see people face to face that I hadn't seen before or had only seen through social media. So thank you for the opportunity, and I'm so glad that I was able to report on it. Let me know if you have questions and what you are most interested in me covering. Upcoming, my Zoom class for the fall is sold out, but for my upcoming Zoom classes, which probably will be in the winter, I take people that I have already worked with before in either my Writer's Digest or NYU courses. And so make sure, go to my website, EstelleSErasmus.com, and look under teaching and speaking and sign up for the podcast, Freelance Writing Direct. Thank you. Follow me at EstelleSErasmus.com on my website and on social media, which is Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter at Estelle S. Erasmus. And we're now on YouTube for Freelance Writing Direct. Follow along, and soon everyone will be reading what you're writing.